Hello patrons, welcome back. As I've just filmed a video for my weekly patron update and I started rabbiting on and I kind of ran out of time. So what I thought I'd do, I'd just keep the conversation going in another video because it'll drop into the timeline on the Patreon channel as the week unfolds. Might be a little surprise for you, something you can enjoy watching. And it's just a talking point really from me here. Because just recently, I've noticed something in the general population here in the United Kingdom. Now, I can't speak for other parts of the world because I haven't really been out of this country for about 4 or 5 months. But I have noticed increasingly the wearing of an item of clothing which is a practical item but seems to have been pressed into general wear by the population. And I believe it signals another nail in the coffin of sartorial style, certainly here in the UK, and I'm sure this is evident elsewhere around the world also. And the item which I'm talking about is the dry robe. Now, I just want to qualify what I mean by a dry robe because I'm conscious that is a brand name. It may be called different things in different parts of the world. But a dry robe was originally created, envisaged and produced as a large, bulky nylon overcoat which would be worn by people once they'd got out of participating in some sort of water-based event. So you've been in the water, maybe playing water polo. Wild swimming is an incredibly popular sport here in the UK at the moment. Activity rather than sport. Or any other activity which takes you in the water and you want to stay warm after that activity. So triathlons, things like that. It doesn't have to be swimming, I guess, but it was designed with swimmers in mind. So it's a large, really large, bulky garment, which typically is nylon on the outside and a sort of fleece on the inside. So it is basically like wearing a large sleeping bag which has got arms attached and a zip up the front. Now, for their intended application, I think nobody can argue that they are a remarkable idea. Because yes, you know, if you are maybe a wild swimmer, you've been out freezing cold water, that's the whole point of it, I guess. Gets the blood flowing, the circulation pumping, does wonders for the mental health. When you get out of the water, you need something to get your body temperature back up. Nobody wants hypothermia, so you whip that on, keeps you nice and warm. Practically a great idea. Stylistically, it's not an attractive item because its intent is not style. It is a boxy, warming, functional item through and through. It was not designed with, style at its heart. However, I think this is just another sign of the relentless casualization of the way that people approach clothing in the modern world, whereas functionality now overrides any intention of form, style, and pride in one's appearance. Increasingly, I have been seeing people wearing dry robes in their normal daily activity. I was in the supermarket the other day and there was I'm going to say husband and wife. I'm presuming they were attached in some way, but a man and a woman, both wearing identical camouflage dry robes, and they were shopping in Waitrose, which is, you know, a supermarket here in the UK. Walking around, it was very cold, as it is today, slightly above freezing, you know, so yes, one wants to stay warm, but it's such a shocking visual item to wear that, and they're often quite brightly coloured as well. It was quite jarring on the eye to see these folks wearing these things around. Now, don't get me wrong, I am not a snob, right? I am not a snob about the way people dress. But what I do believe in wearing things which are appropriate for the setting in which you find yourself in life. And the principle for that is basically being correctly dressed for the setting which you're facing. So if you're going out amongst the public, you're not going to wear, your sports clothes generally because it's not the right setting for the clothing that you're wearing. And I find that the dry robe has now usurped many warm weather clothing at this time of year. and people are wearing them as a matter of course. Now, this was really driven home to me the other day because I went to a city, small rural city called Wells in Somerset, not terribly far from where I live, about 15 miles away. Beautiful cathedral city. It's a city in name only. It would be a small town in reality, but it has a cathedral. It's classed as a city, and they have a beautiful open air market on a Saturday morning. The first stall which I approached in the market was purely selling dry robes, or some cheaper derivative of dry robe, which has clearly been knocked up in some sweatshop in China and being sold for about 20 quid. And these nylon abominations were all hanging and for sale and for about £25. And I thought to myself, okay, I know people are no longer wearing these for their intention. Clearly it's not going to be triathletes and swimmers, water polo players, who are just happening down the street and think to themselves, oh yes, well I think I'll buy one of these right here, right now. How convenient. It's the general population. People are choosing to wear these sleeping bags in general as they go through life. And it's another indication of the slide of society. You know, yes, we've come almost to expect certain types of people to make their way to the supermarket wearing their pajamas and a dressing gown, regardless of the time of day, to be honest, because some folks, they just have no, shame. They will just get out of bed and walk to the shop as they're dressed to buy a packet of cigarettes normally. But now, for those folks who are finding it a little bit too cold to wear their pajamas and dressing gown, now there's another choice. You can slip down another layer in the sort of hierarchy of society. You can wear a dry robe over your pajamas as well. So, yes. And what's the worst thing you could do? Dry robe, pajamas, with Crocs on your feet. Yep, you got it. I can't imagine any less or more shameless an item to wear. It puts me in mind of a saying which Karl Lagerfeld is credited with saying, and that is, sweatpants are a sign that you have lost control of your life and you have accepted defeat in the world. So his idea was, his sort of observations on life came when sweatpants started to sort of descend on the world and people stopped wearing trousers with zips and buttons so that they could be even more lazy and just wear trousers that you pull on, don't have to iron, don't have to do anything to maintain. I think if Karl Lagerfeld were alive today, he would say something similar about dry robes and Crocs. I'm not a snob. The sadness which I feel is that dry robes are just killing off lovely clothes. So in the winter time, I'm wearing a 100% wool gentleman's walking jacket made by a company called Gertin, heritage company, and people would say, but that's expensive. People don't have to spend money or can't spend money on items like that. I paid £5 for this off Vinted. Right? I shopped around, I knew what I wanted, I bought something which would suit me. £5. 20% of the price of a knockoff dry robe. Who looks the most stylish? That's what I would say to you. The guy walking down the street in his sleeping bag with arms, or the guy who spent a fraction of the money and just bought something which was a little more stylish and a little bit more effort by going online and doing it. Just so that you keep the momentum going in your life as an intentionally well-dressed man. That's all I'm going to say now. I don't want to descend down a route of saying things were better when I was younger, because they were, but we're not going to have that argument. Let me know what you think about the proliferation of dry robes as daily clothes in the world that we're seeing right now. I'd love to get your take on it. Am I wrong to think that you shouldn't wear items like that in normal life? You should wear them for only their intended purpose? I mean, let's be honest, if welders' masks suddenly became trendy and people started wearing them around the street, would we think that was acceptable? I don't know. Am I wrong? Let me know. Speak to you soon.